In the last video, we tried to understand the concept of spaces and pages. And in this video, we will learn how to create spaces and pages, and we'll begin with the prerequisites or the requirements for spaces and pages from an developer administration standpoint, meaning people who are responsible for creating spaces and pages, what would they need, and then we will also demo with using switching between groups and spaces and pages. How do we do that? Now, what you see on the screen here is I have two groups. One is the finance accounts apps groups. The other one is AP payment processing group. So in the group concept, no matter how many groups are assigned to you, the apps from those groups will be displayed on a single Launchpad page. Okay, so to find an app, you either have to click on the group, and when you click on the group, the system will take you to the spot where the group starts. Okay, and then you can find your group and find the app that you want to execute. The other way of doing it is either you just simply scroll down till you find your app, okay, or you can search from you can search for the app using this find icon, search icon. Now it is also possible that the groups may not contain everything, all the apps from the catalog that that are assigned to you. So another way of executing and finding and executing app is click on your icon and then go to App Finder. App Finder will give you the catalogs that are assigned to you on the left. And then when you click on the catalog, you'll get the apps that are part of that catalog. Okay, the blue icon here means these are part of a group. And if you click on the financial accounting ones, the apps that are not part of a group from the catalog, those will not be highlighted here, this pen. So which means this could be added to a group. However, just because they're not part of a group doesn't mean users don't have access to it. They can come to the App Finder and they can execute the app from here also because they have the access for it. Now, this is one example we are going to do. So we have in our example, we have two groups. Okay, we have finance accounts SAPs and the AP processing apps. And this access to the user ID is coming from a role. So this role that I have contains two groups, those two groups and the catalogs associated with those two groups. Okay, so accounts payable catalog is associated with the accounts payment processing group, and accounting all apps catalog is associated with finance accounts apps. Okay, so we have a catalog, we have two catalogs and two groups. So this is something that users need access to for using Fiori, okay, apps using Fiori. Now from an implementation implementing spaces and pages standpoint, you as a developer would also need access to our role, the FLP admin. This is a copy of the SAP standard role that contains this authorizations or apps related to pages and spaces. The FDM page repository, FDM page service, and the space and transport. And then you have one more, if you scroll down, there's one more you have. So this OData services that we are talking about here is also listed in the first video, okay, that we discussed, where we discussed spaces and pages. So this is an access that you would need if you want to create spaces and pages. Okay, so this role gives you the development catalog access. Okay. So whatever, like you can go to Launchpad Designer to create catalogs and groups. Similarly, using this role now, it contains this authorizations for spaces and pages. So you need this. Okay. The other thing that you would need is, when before creating a spaces and pages is a transport request. So you can come to SE09 or SE10 and create a transport request before going to create the spaces and pages. Okay. Now the designer, because customers may already be on group concept. So if you want to convert them or move them to spaces and pages, the design aspect of spaces and pages is going to be very important. Okay, so you need to be very imaginative as to how you want to design the layout of your spaces and pages. Okay, so for example, I have a role and I have two groups in it. So the role name, I'm just giving you, an example. Okay, not necessarily you have to do. It's the hard and fast thing that you have to do it in the same way. For example, I'm just giving it an example that the role name could become the space name, and the catalogs uh, within that role could become pages, and apps from each of the groups from that role can become your uh, apps in your pages. Okay, or the catalogs themselves, groups themselves can become the space, and the apps from those groups can be divided into pages. Okay, or you can altogether come up with your own layout of how you want to arrange or display the apps to the users. For example, you can club all your create related, update related apps into one page, all your display related apps into another page. Okay, and custom reports or kind of apps into a third page, depending on how you want the arrange or how you want to design your spaces and pages layout. It's all it depends on you. It's your imagination how you want to do it. All right, so I have two groups here. One is finance accounting apps, the other one is AP payment processing group. And now we will see how to create or create pages and spaces based out of these groups and the tiles apps within this group. Okay. Now, to create a group or create a spaces or the pages, one thing you need is you need access to Fiori Launchpad and the tiles, the manage Launchpad spaces and the manage Launchpad pages apps. Okay. And this access to you comes from this role. Okay. These authorizations. Okay. So make sure you have these authorizations. If you don't see these two tiles, that means you don't have authorization to this role or this data services in your roles that are assigned to you. Okay. Now, also before you start creating the space, you need to ensure that you have a transport request created beforehand. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do now is, I'm going to, as an example, we have these accounting apps, and we have in accounting apps, let's say I'm going to create a page, let's say accounting app space. And then within that accounting app space, I'm going to create pages by dividing the apps coming from the catalog associated with this particular group. Okay. So let's say I'll create a page with, let's say, display apps in one page, posting apps in another page, and chart of accounts could be another page. We will see what we do. Okay. So I will do that, and I will create another page, a space and pages based on the AP payment processing space group, and I will divide the apps coming from the catalog associated with this group into pages for that particular space. Okay. Now, to create the space, the first step in the process is to create a space. Okay. So let's click on the create launchpad spaces app. You get to a screen manage launchpad spaces. You see the create button here. Click on the create button, and now you give a speak ID for a space, like you give an ID when you create catalogs and groups. You also have to specify a ID for the space. Okay, so I'm going to say FinApps space for FinApps. Okay, so I would say financial accounting. Okay, and I'm going to give the way you want to display the space on the launchpad. Okay, is what you're going to specify here. Now here you can also create a page along with uh, when you try first time when you create a space, you can also create a page for it. Okay, in the same screen, in the same step. So when you click on this, also create a page checkbox, you get few more fields to create the space. Oh, sorry, page. So I'm going to say page, and then I'm going to say depending on what it was, right? So let me go back and see what the space was, the descriptions was. Okay. So we can come back to that. So this was finance accounting apps. So I'm going to put some just say chart of accounts. Okay. So I will say page for chart of accounts. Okay. So I'm going to give the page description, and let's say I'll give a page title as chart of accounts. And the last step in the space creation is to specify the transport. So the transport that you created in SE10 or SE09 would show up here. So you specify the transport and then you click on create. Okay. So let's say I have to specify Z here. So let's say I'm going to specify Z's wherever it is. Okay. So let's go and select the transport and click on create. So now the space is created. Okay, now if you see the page is not visible. Okay, so if you want to make a space visible, select the page and then you click on set visible. Okay, all right. Now, the second step in this process, okay, first you create a space, and the second step in the process is to associate the space with the role that will contain the catalogs or the apps that you want to make part of the pages that would be associated with the space. Okay, so I have a role with this catalog and the groups, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to assign this space to the role. Now, okay, this is the second step. So you come to menu tab, go to Fiori Launchpad, and then click on Launchpad space. And then you enter the space name that you created. Okay. Now, because you have associated the space to the role, whatever catalogs are part of this particular role, I'll be able to use them to, as part of the apps coming from this catalogs from this role in the pages associated with that particular space. Okay, so I'm going to save this. I'm going to go back and now I'm going to see what all I can create. So I created, let's say, um, chart of accounts app, right? Now let's say I'm going to create another page called, um, let's say, journal entries. Okay, so let's go and create a page called journal entries. So I've created the space now. Okay, so I'm going to create a space because before we go back to creating pages, how to create pages. Now let's go and look at this particular group. So let's create a space called AP processing. Okay. Okay. So let's create a group called, a space called AP processing itself. Okay. So let's go and create one more page, a space. So if you go back, okay, before we do that, I have to save whatever I have done. Okay. So I saved it. Now I'll go back. So this is a space I just created. I'm to create another space called AP processing. So I say ZSP underscore AP underscore processing. Okay. Okay, so this time what I'm going to do, I'm not going to create a page along with this particular space. Okay, so I'm going to put this in a transport. Click on create. So because I did not create a page, you see there is no page associated with it. Okay, so I'm going to go back. And now there are two spaces associated with this. Now, this space, if you see here the role, you see for this one, the first one you have under roles you have one, which means this particular space is part of one role, whereas the AP processing space is not part of any role yet. So let us go and put, add this to the same role that we created. So what you understand with this number is a space can be part of multiple roles. Okay, so I go here, I pick that up, and then I'll go to the role again and put the space in, add this new space to the role. All right, so I have two spaces now. So I'm going to save it here. All right, now I've created two spaces, and now I have to go, and now the next step in the process is to create pages and then associate the apps into the pages. Okay. All right. So the first step, we created space. Second step, we added those spaces to the roles. Now, if I refresh this, it should have one here now. Okay. So the first step was to create the space. The second step was to associate the space to a role. And now what we are going to do, we are going to create a page. Okay, pages for those uh, spaces. Okay, so click on Launchpad Spaces app. So we already created one page, right, at the time of creating the first space for chart of accounts. So let us go and see what all do we need to, what we thought of creating. Let's say we create a page called journal entries. Okay, and we'll create another page called, uh, let's say, substituents. Okay, we'll create three pages like that for this particular space. Okay, so you click on click on create. Okay, so you create the page called PG called let's say journal entries. Okay, so I'm going to give the same name here. Let's say journal entries. Now, after you see, when we created the space, we also created the page the first time, which means that a space was associated, or page, that page was associated with that space. So whenever you create a page separately, one of the things you also need to do is to um, associate the page with a space. I should have put in here and then say create. Okay. Now, if you see, if you go back, it says it's not associated with a space. Okay. But before we do all that, associate see how to associate a page to a space. Let us create the pages first. Okay. So I'm going to create another page called what did I say? Substitutions. Okay. So let's go and create a page, another page called Z. Okay. So let's say so I want to give this as the title for the page. No, why am I doing? So we've picked the transport. Click on, click on create. So I have created three pages for this first space. I'm going to create three more pages for the second space for AP processing. So what can we do for AP processing, right? So let's say we'll say create payments, create and post payments, display payments. Okay. So let's do two pages for this particular space. Okay. So first space, first um, page that we'll create for this one is for anything to do with changes, creates and creations, posting and updates, and the other one will create for displaying. Okay. So let us create two pages for this one also. So click on create again. So since we want to create a page, so it's GPG, say AP, and then posting, say AP posting, and then associate this with transport, create. So go back, and now you create one more page called AP ZPG AP. Let's say reporting. Okay. Okay. So what we have done now, so far we created spaces. We associate the spaces to the role. Then now we have created pages. So the next step in this process is to associate these pages to the spaces. Okay. So what I'm going to do now, I will go back to, so I can click on this space page to create the content of the space. Okay, so I can click on the space assignment. And then if you click on this, it will take you to the launch spaces screen. I'm not going to do that. So instead, what I'm going to do now, we'll go back to the spaces app. Okay. We go to the spaces app and I have two spaces that I had created. So I'm going to take the AP processing space, click on this change icon, and now associate the pages. With for these two, the two spaces that pages that I created for this space to this here. Okay, so let us go and find the ZPG. Okay, so I'm going to associate the AP posting page and AP reporting page to this particular space. So you select and click on add. Okay, you select the pages that you want to associate with the space and click on add. Okay, now that is done. So I'm going to then you click on save. Okay, similarly, now you go back to in the second space. We'll go back to the space, the second one. Click on this pencil icon, and then one page is already associated because we did this. We created this page at the time of creating the space itself. So you have the chart of accounts pages, associated with the space already. Now you can also associate the remaining pages, right? So select the page, click on add, select the page, click on add. So you can associate whatever pages you want with the space. Okay, it's not that we had this one-to-one relationship here. Okay, so you can add number of pages to the same space. Okay, now click on save. So now this is done, right? Now the next step in this process is to associate the apps from the catalogs to the pages. So now we go back to the pages screen again. So far what we have done, we created spaces, step number 1. Then we added the space to the role. Then we created the pages. And then the fourth step was we associated the pages to the space. Okay, so now the next step in this process is to associate the apps to individual pages. Okay, so for example, now I'm going to come to reporting page for accounts PP payment processing group or page or space, and then select the first page, click on the change. Okay, now on the right side, once this comes up, what you see on the left, for example, is how you want to display your page, that particular page on the Launchpad. So the Launchpad contains one main section, something called as the top main section, wherein you can put in all the apps in the same one main section, or you can divide the apps into different sections. Okay, so you could have one section for create apps, another section for change apps, another section for display apps. Okay, you can arrange that particular page as per your design. So I'm going to say, AP reporting, right? So let's say I need to have display apps in them, right? So click on select the apps that you want to be, want to add to the particular page in that section. So click on. I'm going to look for the display types of apps and add them. So select the app, click on add. So it's added here. Okay, however, you see there is no, the section title is still empty. Okay, you need to enter the section title. We will do that in a minute. Let's say monitor payments. Okay, so monitor payments, then select the app and then click on add. Okay, and let's say I want to say my free payments form. Let me add that also. Um, let's say clear payments. Let's say add. Okay. Let's say now what we say, payment. Let's give a title called section title called payment reports, something like this. Okay. All right. Now I have some more apps here, right? So let's say I'm going to create another section. Now to create another section for the same page, click on the add section button here. So the section is create. You can create a section now. Okay. So you can give a title for the section saying, I'll say manage, how did I do it? Manage payments. Okay. And now when you click on, let's say manage automatic payments, so select the app, right? When you click on add here, now because this page has now two sections, you get the list of both the sections that you are creating. Okay. You need to select the appropriate section where you want that app to group in. Okay. So click on add. So click on manage and I can create. Okay. All right. So I can click on this, click on add, manage. So it's doing one by one, right? If I do this, so some other options are coming. So click on add one by one. Okay. Okay. Manage. All right. I'm going to create another section called, let's say, post payments. Okay. So select the post payment section that you're creating, select the app, and then click on add. All right. I'm going to, this is enough for now. So let's go back, and this particular space had two pages, right? So let's go back to posting. So I already selected posting, then the other one. So let's go and create that, add the same content here also. So what I did was I clicked on the app itself. I should have clicked on the pencil. So select the page, click on this pencil icon, and I'm going to click here saying post payments. Okay. So after creating this post payment section, I'll go back to the other page and remove the section. Okay. So post payments. So I'm going to add two apps here. Okay. Post incoming, add, uh, and outgoing, post supplier. Okay. Say schedule accounts. Okay. All right. So I'm going to, if you want to add some more apps, you can. Let's add that. Okay. So if you want to remove an app, then you just click on this X icon and it's gone. So let's save it. So I'm going to quickly go and remove that section from the other one. Okay, I delete a section. I'm going to save this. And now I'm going to go and create the apps or create the pages for the financial accounts apps. Okay, so click on this pencil icon, selecting the page. So let's click on substitutions. Okay, enter the section as substitutions. And then select your app. Now, this is not the catalog that I want to use. So see this list of on the right side, what you see is, you'll see the catalogs from the roles where those spaces are associated with. Okay. Now the space could be, one space could be associated with multiple roles. So the catalogs from each of those roles will be displayed on this in this panel on the side, on the right side. So and you need to be careful from what app from what catalog you're picking up the apps from. Okay. So I'm going to go and look for financial accounting app, right? Now so what is this substitutions, right? So let's pick the apps that say substitution. Okay. Okay. So you have substitution here. Click on add. And this time in this page, I'm not going to create any sections. Okay. So if you want to add any section, you create click on the button add section here and then add the apps to that section. Okay. So we have seen that already. So I'm not going to go and repeat it again. So where is substitution here? Okay. So I'm going to save this. So this particular page has only 3 apps. Okay. The substitutions page. So let's go and create the next page. Okay. The next page is, let's say, journal entries. So again, I made the mistake. So select the page, click on this pencil icon. So I'm going to create a page called journal entries, a section called journal entries. And then I'll add whatever I think, wherever we have journal. All right. So once we have selected all the apps, click on Save. And now we have the third page, the last remaining page called chart of accounts. So select the page and we'll then click on this pencil icon. And now you select the chart of accounts page as apps for this particular page. Okay, so see, I don't have too many apps for this. Let's go and create a section. So what section you want to create? Let's say um, display uh, uh, let's say reports. Okay, financial reports. Let's say I create a section called financial reports just to fill up the page. Uh, then I say okay, click on add, add. All right, so let's this is enough. Okay, now click on save. All right, so with this we are actually done with the creation of spaces and pages. So I'm going to create a notepad here and just describe what we have just done. So the first step that we did was we created a space. So what do you need to do? Create a space first, okay? Next, you need to assign the space to at least one role, okay? So spaces can be one single space can be associated with multiple roles. So at least minimum one role in the space has to be associated with to a role. Next, what did we do? We created pages. Fourth step, we what do you call assign the page to the I would say in the to a space. Okay. And the fifth step that what we did after associating the pages to the space, we assigned apps files to the from the catalog in the role to the page. And we actually also created, as an example, sections within that page. Okay. So these are the main 5 steps that we did. Okay. Now let us see how we can use these pages and spaces that we created, how they are going to look. Now, so once you have, because the space is already, associated with the role, right? This one, right? These two. Oh no, this one, sorry. Okay. And this is not going to change any authorizations, right? So you don't need to update or and you don't have to change authorizations here. You just have to add the space to the role. Now, this is the screen I had, original uh, screen, the launchpad with groups. This is how it's going to look, right? This is how it looks. Now, how do I convert or, switch between groups to spaces and pages, right? So once you're in the group, okay? So once you're in the launchpad, not the group, sorry. Once you're in the launchpad, what you do is you click on, the user would need to go and click on his profile icon here and click on settings. Now, if the configuration is done, and how to configure it is in the first video, you click on spaces and pages, okay? And then you see this checkbox here. You select this checkbox and click on save. The users will need to do that, or you have to train your end users to do it. And then if you see your launchpad screen, it switched from groups to using spaces and pages. So these are the 2 spaces you created. And within the space, you had created 2 pages. In this case, in this particular space. And in the financial accounting space, you created 3 pages. So whenever you click on a page from a space, whatever apps are part of that particular page will be displayed on the launchpad. Okay. Now, okay. So only the apps that are part of that page will be displayed to you. Now the apps could be divided into sections like you just saw, right? Where you created in this particular page, you had 2 sections. So you see apps as per the sections, divided in the sections that you created. Okay. Now, if the users want to switch back to groups, using groups, click on the settings again, click on spaces and pages, and remove this. Okay. Click on save, and the users will be switched back to using the groups. So all the apps you see is that they are on one single page, right? Whatever is assigned to the user, it is in one single page. Okay. But when you use the groups, sorry, when you use the spaces and pages, okay, the space or the page that you select, whatever is in that particular page, those are the only apps that are displayed. Okay, so I click on another one. So this one here, right? So you see when I clicked on the main space itself, the first one that you get to see by default is whatever is the first page in that list. Okay. So when I click on the other page, I'll see only the apps that are part of that particular page. Okay. Now, again, to switch between spaces and pages or groups to groups, or from groups to spaces and pages, click on settings, select this button and uncheck the spaces, and then you will be switched back to groups. Okay. So this is how you can create pages and spaces. And the design the layout of your spaces and pages is going to be very important. This gives you the flexibility basically to clean up the Launchpad screen, Launchpad page, and give access to or display apps that the users actually want to see. Okay, so that's about it, right? So these are the five main steps. Finally, to summarize, these are the five main steps for creating spaces and pages.